Something important is shifting, and most people will move straight through it without ever realizing it happened. There's no headline for it, no breaking news alert, no dramatic moment you can point to and say, "That's when everything changed." On the surface, life keeps its familiar shape, same streets, same conversations, same routines, but beneath that thin layer of normality, something is quietly rearranging itself. You may already sense it if you slow down long enough. A subtle pressure in the background of your thoughts, a strange feeling that time isn't moving the way it used to, that the old rules you've been living by don't fit quite right anymore. This isn't chaos and it isn't random. It's a threshold. A moment where what used to work begins to dissolve, making space for something that hasn't fully arrived yet. Most people will distract themselves through it, explaining the feeling away, numbing it or ignoring it altogether. But a few will pause. A few will notice the tension, the discomfort, the quiet pull toward change. Those are the ones standing at the edge of a turning point. Not in the future, not after one more plan or one more delay, but here, in this exact moment. Because real shifts don't announce themselves loudly. They happen internally first, silently reshaping perception before reality ever catches up. And once you recognize that this moment is asking something from you, attention, honesty, awareness, you can't unsee it. You're no longer waiting for change. You're standing inside it. Not tomorrow, not someday. Right now. This shift isn't loud. It doesn't crash into your life or demand your attention. It moves quietly, almost invisibly through ordinary moments. Most people won't notice it because they're waiting for something dramatic to happen. A breakthrough, a sign, a clear signal telling them it's time. But that's not how real change shows up. Real change arrives when nothing on the outside looks different. Yet something inside you has already moved. You may feel like the next day carries a strange kind of weight. Not pressure, not fear, just importance. Like something is settling into place. This isn't random. Moments like this only appear after a long period of internal preparation. Long before this solstice showed up on a calendar, life started adjusting you, slowly, quietly. Your patience shifted. Your tolerance for certain situations dropped. Things you used to chase stopped feeling worth the effort. You didn't make a big decision about it. You just noticed your energy pulling back. You may have felt disconnected from old goals, old conversations, or old versions of yourself without knowing why. That wasn't confusion. It was refinement. You were outgrowing patterns that could only take you so far. And instead of forcing the next step, life held you still long enough for that growth to stabilize. That pause wasn't punishment. It was preparation. This is where many people get stuck. They assume nothing is happening because nothing is visible. But the most important changes don't announce themselves. They show up as a quiet refusal to keep living the same way. A calm knowing that you can't go back, even if you're not fully sure where you're going yet. That feeling isn't impatience. It's readiness. If this moment passes unnoticed, life continues in familiar loops. Same thoughts, same cycles, same emotional weight. But if you recognize it, something irreversible begins. Not all at once, not dramatically, but steadily. Awareness changes how you move through time. And once awareness clicks in, you can't unsee it. This isn't about being chosen or special. It's about being present. Most people look for answers outside themselves. But the real signal has always been internal. A steady sense that you're done staying the same. The solstice doesn't create that readiness. It simply confirms it. If you've felt unusually still lately, more observant, less reactive, or strangely detached from old worries, that's not random. That's your system recalibrating. A chapter is already closing, even if it hasn't officially ended yet. And this moment exists to help you notice that before you step into what comes next. When reality starts lining up, when a real shift begins, life doesn't suddenly become loud or chaotic. Instead, it becomes precise. Things start lining up in ways that feel too accurate to ignore. Timing tightens. Moments that once felt random start carrying meaning. You may notice certain numbers repeating when you're thinking about change, endings or decisions you've been avoiding. Not as a gimmick, not as superstition, more like a rhythm that keeps tapping you on the shoulder. Conversations begin happening at exactly the right moment. Someone says something that lands deeper than expected, even though they had no idea what you were dealing with. You might hear the same phrase twice in one day from completely unrelated places. A song lyric, a podcast, a stranger's comment. It's not dramatic, but it sticks with you. Something you weren't actively searching for suddenly finds you anyway. Your dreams may start changing too. Not chaotic or confusing, but clearer, more symbolic, more direct. They don't feel random. They feel instructional, almost like your mind is practicing a future you haven't stepped into yet. During the day, there's a quiet inner nudge that feels different from anxiety or impulse. It's calm, certain. It doesn't rush you or argue with you. It just points. This is what real alignment looks like. It doesn't shout. It organizes. It rearranges your reality until the message repeats enough times that ignoring it takes effort. And if you've been noticing these patterns lately, it's because you're not approaching the shift. You're already inside it. The solstice isn't pulling you forward. It's responding to the fact that you're ready. What most people don't realize is that once this process starts, resistance doesn't stop it. It only adds weight. Fighting the shift doesn't cancel it. It just makes it feel harder than it needs to be. That's why the signs aren't there to tell you what to do. They're not instructions. They're confirmations. They're showing you that something is active. Something is moving. How smooth or heavy the transition feels next depends on how willing you are to stop pretending nothing is happening. Alignment doesn't demand action right away. It asks for awareness first. And the moment you acknowledge what you're already sensing, things begin to move with less effort and less friction. What breaks the shift? Moments like this rarely fall apart because people don't want change badly enough. They fall apart because people unconsciously sabotage themselves right at the edge. The solstice doesn't respond to words, intentions, or how meaningful something looks on the surface. It responds to coherence, and coherence is fragile when old habits take over. The first thing that breaks alignment is performative spirituality, turning this moment into a show, even just for yourself, forcing rituals, forcing emotions, pretending to feel enlightened, motivated, or certain when you don't. The moment you perform, you disconnect. Real shifts don't need to be proven. They don't need to be dramatic. They happen quietly, almost invisibly. Power fades the instant it tries to impress. The most important changes often look ordinary from the outside. The second thing that disrupts this shift is arguing with the past, revisiting old stories, reopening old conversations, mentally explaining, justifying, or defending what already happened. Sometimes people call this closure, but it's usually attachment in disguise. The past doesn't need resolution. It needs silence. What's finished doesn't ask for your attention. Every time you replay an old chapter, you tie yourself back to it emotionally. You don't heal by re-entering old rooms. You heal by leaving them empty. The third thing that breaks coherence is acting from guilt. Guilt feels responsible, but it isn't. It's a tether. It pulls you back into versions of yourself that survive through obligation instead of truth. When you act out of guilt, you reinforce an identity built on duty, fear, and people-pleasing. And that's exactly the identity this solstice is trying to dissolve. Growth doesn't move forward when you betray yourself to stay comfortable. If you ignore these patterns and things suddenly feel off, heavy or confusing again, it doesn't mean you failed. It means you stepped back into a loop you were meant to exit. The solstice doesn't punish. It reflects. It shows you where you're still split, between who you've been and who you're becoming. This is why what you do now matters more than what you believe. Alignment isn't about doing more. It's about stopping the things that pull you backward. When you stop performing, stop revisiting the past, and stop acting from guilt. Coherence returns naturally. And when coherence returns, the shift moves forward on its own, without force, without struggle, and without needing your constant effort. Presence is the key. For all the intensity people project onto moments like this, there's something important that often gets missed. This shift is not here to test you, rush you, or demand a perfect version of yourself. It isn't waiting for you to feel confident, inspired, or certain. What it responds to is something much simpler: presence. You don't need to have your life figured out for this moment to work in your favor. You don't need a detailed plan or a clear vision of what comes next. Trying to force clarity right now can actually create resistance. This shift doesn't reward control. It responds to honesty. Being real about where you are carries more weight than pretending to be ready for something you're not. This is why the energy of this solstice feels calm beneath the surface. It's not pushing you forward. It's steadying what's already moving. Even if your progress has been slow, inconsistent, or invisible, it still counts. Momentum doesn't disappear just because it isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's internal. And right now, that subtle movement is being reinforced. A small internal acknowledgement can change everything. Simply recognizing that you're done with something that's been draining you, or admitting that you're ready for more, creates a shift that feels bigger than the effort you put in. That's because the environment itself is supportive right now. The ground is already moving in the direction you've been quietly hoping for. There's no pressure to get it right. In fact, trying too hard to set perfect intentions can block the flow. This moment isn't about intensity, it's about alignment. And alignment favors honesty over effort. A gentle step forward carries unusual strength right now, because timing is doing part of the work for you. This shift doesn't demand more from you. It finally gives something back. It removes friction instead of adding pressure. When resistance fades, progress starts to feel natural again. You stop pushing. You stop forcing. And without even realizing it, you begin moving in the right direction, simply by staying present with what's real for you right now. The power of feeling paused. What's interesting about this shift is who it affects the most. Not the people who have been constantly changing, moving, or reinventing themselves, but the ones who felt paused. The ones who have been waiting, circling the same questions, holding steady through long stretches where nothing seemed to move no matter how hard they tried. If that's been you, this moment isn't late. It's exact. Long periods of stillness are often misunderstood. From the outside, they look like stagnation. From the inside, they feel frustrating, confusing, and exhausting. But stillness isn't failure. It's compression. When life holds you in place for a long time, something builds quietly underneath. Awareness deepens, discernment sharpens, patience forms in ways that don't feel productive at the time, but become essential later. You weren't standing still because you were blocked. You were being shaped. This solstice arrives like a release valve. Not explosively, not chaotically, decisively. What's been compressed the longest carries the most force once it's released. That's why movement now feels inevitable instead of sudden. It doesn't feel like a surprise. It feels like something that's been waiting for the right moment to resume. If your life felt like it was on hold, this shift doesn't judge that pause. It activates what it created. The waiting wasn't wasted. It was preparatory. Skills you didn't realize you were developing are now ready to be used. Boundaries you learned the hard way are now automatic. You're no longer questioning the basics. You're ready to move without constantly second-guessing yourself. And the movement doesn't announce itself dramatically. Direction doesn't show up with fireworks. It resumes naturally, almost as if it never stopped. The difference is that now you're steady enough to keep going. This is why this shift doesn't wake up people who are searching loudly. It activates those who've been quietly becoming. The ones who kept going internally even when nothing changed externally. If this feels familiar, it's because you've been preparing for this long before you knew what you were preparing for. The pause was never the problem. The pause was the process. When exhaustion becomes a message, there's a kind of tiredness connected to this shift that has nothing to do with sleep. It's deeper than physical fatigue. It's the exhaustion that comes from carrying things that no longer belong to you. And this solstice moves directly through that weariness, not to punish it, but to reveal it. If you felt drained, unmotivated, or strangely resistant to things you used to push through, that's not laziness, it's clarity forming. For a long time, parts of your life have depended on you forcing energy into them. Situations, habits, roles, relationships, or even thought patterns that stopped fitting but kept demanding effort. And you kept showing up because you believed endurance was strength. But endurance becomes resistance when what you're holding has already expired. This is why motivation hasn't responded the way it used to, why discipline feels heavier, why pretending something still matters feels impossible. This solstice doesn't inspire you to keep going. It makes you too tired to keep lying to yourself. And that fatigue is not a breakdown. It's information. When something consistently drains you, it's not always because you're weak. Sometimes it's because your energy is trying to withdraw from what's finished. The universe doesn't always close doors with chaos or confrontation. Sometimes it closes them by slowly removing your interest, your patience, and your emotional investment. You don't quit dramatically. You just stop having the energy to continue. This shift sharpens that process. It doesn't reward pushing through. It rewards honesty. If you've hit an invisible wall, it's not a failure of effort. It's a checkpoint, a signal that a storyline has run its course. The exhaustion is pointing, not punishing. Once you stop fighting that fatigue, something surprising happens. Your energy doesn't disappear. It reroutes. What truly belongs to you doesn't drain you. It restores you. It may still challenge you, but it won't hollow you out. You'll notice that the things meant to continue into your next chapter feel lighter, even if they're demanding. This solstice isn't asking you to do more. It's asking you to stop carrying what's already done. And the moment you let go, not forcefully but honestly, you create space for energy to return in a form that actually supports who you're becoming next. The closing of a long cycle. Every solstice marks a shift, but this one carries a different kind of weight. It's not just another seasonal change or symbolic pause. It feels final in a way that's hard to explain. This is the closing seal on a year that was never meant to make sense while you were living it. Only now, as things slow down and the light reaches its still point, can you begin to see the pattern behind everything that unfolded. This isn't just the end of a calendar year cycle. It's the end of a phase that's been stretching far longer than 12 months. For some, it's been years in the making. Years of recalibration. Years of internal restructuring. Years of letting go without fully realizing what you were releasing. Winter solstices are always reflective, but this one is also directional. It doesn't just ask you to look back. It quietly points forward. There's a sense that the questions have changed. The universe is no longer asking what you learned. It's asking where you're willing to go next. And that question only shows up when the learning phase is complete. This solstice arrives after a long period of stagnation, uncertainty, and behind-the-scenes growth. The kind of growth that doesn't feel like progress while it's happening, but becomes obvious once you reach the turning point. That's why the energy feels sharper now, more focused, more personal. It doesn't hit everyone the same way. It's tailored. It touches the specific parts of your life that are ready to become functional again. The parts of you that are ready to come back online, not with intensity but with coherence. You may notice a sudden clarity about what can move forward with you and what absolutely cannot. There's less confusion, less bargaining, less emotional attachment to things that once felt important. This isn't coldness, it's discernment. You've been stripped down to essentials so that when the next cycle begins, you're not overwhelmed by options. You're aligned with direction. The right path doesn't begin with effort, it begins with alignment. And alignment is exactly what this solstice is tuning you toward. The old cycle can't continue past this point. It's run its course. And the new cycle can't fully begin until this energetic exhale completes. This is the stillness before momentum returns. Not because you're forcing change, but because everything that held you back has finally loosened its grip. This solstice isn't reminding you of who you've been. It's quietly introducing you to who you're ready to become. The shift into forward motion. What comes next carries a very different energy than what you've been living in. The themes ahead aren't about waiting, fixing, or endlessly preparing. They're about movement, choice, courage, momentum, where the previous cycle asked you to slow down and recalibrate. The one ahead will ask you to step forward and commit. This solstice is the hinge between those two phases. It's the moment where the internal work translates into external direction. The rebuilding phase is complete. Now comes the rising, and this transition doesn't happen through force or sudden action. It happens through release, through letting the old cycle fully exhale so the new one can begin without resistance. That's why this moment can feel strangely quiet, even though something big is changing. There's no rush, no urgency, no pressure to prove anything. The gears are shifting naturally. The internal upgrades you've been making all year are locking into place, preparing you to move without hesitation. You may notice that decisions start feeling different, cleaner, less emotional. You're not overanalyzing every outcome. You're not waiting for perfect certainty. You're simply recognizing what makes sense and moving accordingly. This isn't impulsive. It's integrated. The difference is subtle but powerful. The path ahead won't require you to rebuild yourself again. It will require you to use what you've already built. Confidence now comes from stability, not excitement. Action comes from alignment, not pressure. You're no longer trying to become someone else. You're stepping into what's already been formed. This solstice doesn't push you into motion. It removes what was keeping you still. Once that friction dissolves, forward movement feels natural, even inevitable. You're not starting from zero. You're resuming from a pause, carrying everything you refined during the waiting. The shift into motion doesn't feel chaotic. It feels right. Like finally walking at the pace your life has been preparing you for. And once this movement begins, it doesn't stop easily. Not because you're forcing it, but because the resistance that slowed you down is no longer in control. This is the moment where preparation turns into direction, where inner work becomes outer progress, and where your next chapter stops being a concept and starts becoming something you actually live. The restlessness beneath the surface. There's a very specific kind of restlessness in the air right now. And it's not coming from stress or external pressure. It's deeper than that. It sits underneath your thoughts, beneath your logic, almost like your entire system is bracing for something it can't fully name yet. And this timing is no coincidence. The body always senses major shifts before the mind can understand them. If you've been feeling anxious, unsettled, on edge, or unusually alert, it doesn't mean something is wrong. It means expansion is pressing against an old boundary. When energy like this builds, especially around a solstice, it stretches the internal space where your identity has been quietly changing. But the nervous system doesn't recognize growth as opportunity. It recognizes it as pressure. This is why some people feel internally wired, restless, or emotionally sensitive right now. Sleep may feel lighter, thoughts may move faster, your patience may feel thinner than usual. You might feel like you need to change something immediately, even if you don't know what that something is. None of this is random, and none of it means you're off track. Your body is recalibrating before your mind catches up. The unfamiliar always arrives as intensity before it becomes clarity. The old patterns you've relied on are loosening, and they rarely let go quietly. They release with tension first. You feel it as unease, as irritability, as a deep urge to break routine or step out of old structures. This isn't panic. It's pressure releasing. It's important to understand this clearly. Your body is not betraying you. It's preparing you. What feels like anxiety is often intuition speeding up. Your internal compass is adjusting, scanning for a new direction because the old ones no longer align. The compass isn't malfunctioning. It's recalibrating. When you allow yourself to see this restlessness as guidance instead of a problem, something shifts. The discomfort doesn't disappear, but it changes character. It becomes directional instead of overwhelming. It reminds you that you're standing directly in front of something larger than what you've been settling for. You are not lost. You are not spiraling. You are not failing to cope. You are being redirected. And this internal movement is simply your system, expanding to match the scale of the next chapter you're about to step into, rebuilding trust in yourself. This shift isn't about fate, destiny, or a cosmic plan unfolding in front of you. It's about something far more personal, rebuilding trust in yourself. For too long, many of us have depended on external validation, signs, confirmation, answers from others to feel confident about moving forward. And when those signs didn't come, we doubted our instincts, our timing, our own judgment. Periods of stagnation, uncertainty, or disappointment can leave us questioning ourselves. But the truth is, this pattern isn't about lack of awareness or intelligence. It's about years of conditioning to distrust your inner voice. You've been trained to wait for clarity before acting, to hesitate until someone or something outside you confirms your next move. This solstice flips that narrative. It reconnects you to your internal compass, not by giving you clear answers, but by removing the pressure to need them in the first place. True progress rarely begins with full understanding. It begins with trust. Trust that you can navigate the next step even without a full map, even with unanswered questions. Right now, you don't need a perfect plan or absolute certainty. You only need confidence in the part of you that's been quietly growing all year. Every pause, every delay, every moment of confusion was not wasted. They were refining your internal guidance system, stripping away the influences and doubts that would have made you hesitate once real opportunity arrived. When you start trusting yourself again, the nature of your decisions changes. You stop negotiating with hesitation. You stop assuming you're wrong before you even act. You stop trying to predict every possible outcome before taking a single step. Movement begins to emerge naturally, guided by your own internal clarity rather than external approval. The solstice doesn't hand you new answers. It restores the most essential thing: belief in your ability to navigate what comes next. Once you reclaim that trust, uncertainty transforms. It doesn't feel paralyzing anymore. Instead, it becomes purposeful. It becomes a signal that you're stepping into a larger, more aligned chapter of your life, one where you no longer need permission from anyone, external or internal, to move forward. This moment is about recalibrating your confidence, not the loud, showy confidence, but the quiet, steady kind that trusts itself. And that trust is what allows you to act even in the midst of questions, doubts, or unknowns. That is the power this solstice restores. And it's the foundation for everything that comes next. Alignment over effort. By now, it should be clear. This solstice isn't about pushing harder, trying longer, or forcing outcomes. It's about alignment. The old patterns, habits, and obligations that slowed you down are dissolving. The friction that once made progress feel heavy is being removed. And when that friction is gone, movement becomes natural. Effort feels lighter. Choices feel clearer. Life begins to flow in a way that's consistent with who you've quietly become over the past months or years. This shift doesn't reward adrenaline or intensity. It rewards honesty. Honest acknowledgement of where you are, what you're ready to release, and what genuinely belongs in your next chapter. You don't need perfect clarity. You don't need flawless intention. You don't need to have everything figured out. What matters is being present with what's real for you right now. The solstice favors subtlety over spectacle. Gentle steps forward carry extraordinary force. Small acknowledgments. I'm done with this, or I'm ready for more. Shift momentum far more effectively than dramatic declarations or forced resolutions. That's because the timing itself is supporting your movement. The universe isn't pushing you. It's clearing the path beneath your feet. The energy you feel isn't an obstacle. It's a guide. Your restlessness, your fatigue, your subtle anxiety, they are not warnings. They are signals that something is shifting internally and externally. They mark the threshold of a new phase. And if you allow yourself to breathe into these signals instead of resisting them, they will lead you directly into the alignment this solstice is designed to activate. The next chapter won't demand that you force progress. It will demand that you move with coherence, that you act from truth, not obligation, that you follow your own internal compass rather than looking for external confirmation. That is the gift this solstice offers. The restoration of trust in yourself, the release of what no longer serves you, and the quiet but unstoppable momentum toward the life that matches who you've been becoming all along. This is more than a moment. It's a turning point, a pivot into alignment, clarity, and forward motion. The solstice doesn't push you. It meets you where you are and raises you higher. And now, if you stay present, listen and move honestly, there is no stopping the momentum that has been waiting for you all along.